Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. And today's Thursday, April 24th, 2025, 6 p.m. We're at the Suncoast Technical College, and I call the town hall meeting to order. Commissioners present are Commissioner Duval, Commissioner Langdon, Mayor Stokes, Vice Mayor Emmerich, and Commissioner Petro. There's a quorum present for this meeting. Also present, City Manager Fletcher, Interim City Attorney Coglin. Thank you. I know. Took a minute. Assistant City Clerk Powell, Police Chief Garrison, and Chief Titus is out in the hall. Let's see, who's going to lead us in the pledge? How about Deputy Chief? You going to lead us in the pledge? Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir. We do have one e-comment. Art
Okay.
Bilski. It has been reported that the city manager stated that for every $100 million bonded, taxes will increase 30%. So with just the $300 million bonded, taxes will increase 90%. Is this a true statement? And that is all.
All righty.
No.
For anybody who wants to ask questions, there are cards in the back if you folks want to fill them out, and that'll help. But we're going to try to run this just like a town hall, so there'll be some give and take. It won't be like in chambers where you just get up and do your 3 minutes and that's it. We'll have some back and forth. But for those people who would like to speak and engage with us, please, if you'd be kind enough to fill out the card, that will help. We can keep track of things. So with that, let's move on to general business. City Manager, you want to introduce things?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is the introduction by the city manager, and this is the third and final town hall that we're having prior to the May 13th referendum. The commission has been available. Staff is still here to answer questions that you in the audience might have. We thank you for joining us today. These questions that are in front of you as a community are very important. As I answered the question from the first public commenter, misinformation is our worst enemy. If you have questions, we have a lot of information either online on our website or here in person for you to get the right information to make your own choice. It is your choice. We just want to make sure that you have the information that we can provide to you so that you can get to the destination that you're trying to get to. But we have 5 questions to talk about, and I'll stop right there and we'll go through them, walk through them individually. And as you have questions for the commission, they are available over the microphone on your left, and we will get going. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. So we'll start off with.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I guess we just got a public comment card in for the first public comment.
All righty.
Richard, sorry, I can't quite read the last name. Mitchkar? McCluskar.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board and city manager, I am not a resident of Northport. I'm just an old retired aviation grease monkey that decided to ride into the sunset from my home in South Venice. And I'm here just to tell you that everything that you do, every decision that you make affects directly my chosen place of residence where I'm going to ride into the sunset from. And I'm a little bit dismayed about the pace of development in Northport. 10 years ago, it took me 10 minutes to get here on US 41. Now it takes me a half an hour at best on 75, which I hate to ride on my scooter. But at the same time, everything that's being done, that's being considered right now, is to fund even more of the same. And at the same time, the people that moved here 10 years ago, they came here for the same reason that I did. Many of them. We like the semi-rural, suburban character of the city. And I would ask respectfully that you do everything that you can to preserve that and slow this development. Again, I'm just an old timer, and I'm not going to be around very long, but I have a large family. My nephew lives in Northport. He has 6 children. I would like them to grow up in a place that is not the equivalent of LA County, from which I am a refugee. My father came here in 1964 to escape what is happening in Miami-Dade, and that is why I moved from there to Venice, to escape. I'm a refugee. I've been a refugee all my life. I even lived in Alaska for 20 years to get away from it. But you can run, but you can't hide. I would just ask to slow it down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the first of the referendum questions, 25-1927. Discussion regarding referendum question related to city borrowing authority for response to declared emergencies with public question and answer session. Do you want to say a little on this, City Manager?
Sorry, my apologies. And I'm looking at our website if you're wondering where I'm getting the information from, because I want to go straight to where you can get the same information. Florida local governments may issue certain debt for various government purposes. The city charter requires voter approval before the city issues any debt. Should the charter be amended to allow the city to use debt payable from funds other than property taxes without voter approval to respond to a declared emergency or disaster? A vote yes would allow the city the flexibility to borrow to remove debris or repair or reconstruct any public infrastructure or capital facilities damaged as a result of an emergency or disaster. And there's more information to it than that, but as being one of the only cities that we can find, the only city that we can find in the state of Florida that does not have the ability to borrow, if we are impacted by multiple hurricanes, the city would not be able to recover itself by itself. We did have Hurricane Ian, which was the worst storm that we've had since in recent memory, and it did deplete our funds, and we have gotten a lot of those funds back, whether it was from insurance, FEMA, or whoever, which is great. The challenge is if you would have had another storm on top of that while you didn't have the money. If you think about the storms that we had last year, where we had Debbie, Helene, and Milton, all of those skirted north of us, and we were very blessed and fortunate not to receive the main impact of any of those storms. If 2 of those storms had shifted and hit us directly, we would have been in a position of not being able to recover, and then that puts us in a position of having to go to the state or another entity to see how we can rebuild ourselves. This is what we're trying to avoid. This is not the same question that was on the ballot in November of 24. That question said, could we borrow for emergency disasters, as well as $15 million for public safety and health infrastructure projects. We heard the vote based on it not passing, saying to separate the 2 questions and make the emergency disaster and recovery a separate question, because there was the appetite for that, which is what we did. And then you'll see some other questions coming up that we're going to talk about that show how we listen to you and put 2 other projects on the ballot as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. So with that, we'll open it up for those people who want to come up, have questions, come up to the podium, ask us. This is an important referendum item, so, don't be shy. Come and ask. No question is a stupid question. Come up and ask. You got to have some thoughts on this, even if you just want to, voice your opinion. Nothing on this one.
Okay.
Again, as City Manager touched on the high points of this item, and the other thing to mention too is he alluded to, how we expended in total, probably close to $100 million to recover from Ian. And it took us quite a few years to get those funds back from FEMA and insurance. And unfortunately, or fortunately, does the federal government and the state issue low and no interest loans. Many of them are forgivable for municipalities that can take advantage of that borrowing to recover from natural disasters. Usually there's a narrow window of application, period to apply. Because our city's charter, as he said, prohibit us from borrowing without a public referendum at this point, what happens is we can't take advantage of that window of opportunity. So we were forced after Ian to tap our reserves. This borrowing authority gives us the ability to access those loans. They get paid back through, again, FEMA and insurance. People have said, well, how much could you borrow? There's no borrowing cap in this referendum, this particular item. And that's because we have no idea and the level to which a disaster might hit us. I mean, we spent, 40, 50, $60 million on debris removal alone after Ian. We wouldn't want to put a $25 or a $30 million borrowing cap only to find our expenses ran over $50 million, and we'd be trapped without the ability to take advantage of these low and no interest loans. So it's really, really an important tool for us to have in the toolbox. And as he mentioned, 411 municipalities in the state. We cannot find one that doesn't have the borrowing ability like our charter restricts us on. And that's, it goes back to the old general development days. And it's just something that we've had to live with all these years. And with the number of storms, the severity of storms, we don't dare take a chance. And this referendum item was the driving force behind holding a May election. Some of you have to have wondered, why are you guys running a May referendum in an off season when hardly any people are going to vote? And why are you doing this? We already said no in November. And as the city manager said, that ask was very broad, much broader than this one. We're doing it because how responsible will we be if we waited till the next election cycle, 2026, and we got hammered this season and we couldn't respond? And citizens said, what are wrong with these idiots? Year after year, there's these hurricanes. Why didn't you do something? So that drove this election. And it's important for you folks who cared enough to come tonight to push everyone else to come out and vote and to explain why this one, more than anything, is so important. They're all important, but this one's really important to give us the tool to help us help you. Anybody want to speak to this item on the dais? I mean, I'd love people. Don't be shy. Speak up. We're just like you.
Does that mean everyone's voting yes for this item on May 13th? That's how I'm interpreting it. Okay, thank you.
Somebody have ballots to pass out?
Oh. Am I on? Oh, yeah, I can tell. Okay, to reiterate what's already been said. When there's a disaster, FEMA has funds. In my position as a city commissioner, I get emails, reports about FEMA. Last year's hurricanes, those two we had late in the season, if you are an individual and your property had damage, the window for you to apply to FEMA for help has already closed. Think about that. If you can't apply for money, how do you think it would be if the city needed millions and could not apply for the money because we let the window close? And that's what happens if we have to wait 2 years for a general election when we can ask the citizens, is it okay if we borrow this money? That's why this, for declared emergencies, is so important. Because there's an old saying, if you snooze, you lose. And that's what would happen to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. If last chance on this particular item. All right, come on up, sir.
So I'm just trying to understand some things. So when Ian came through, big expense, I think he said $60 million to clean up debris. Did we have that storm covered with the money we had set aside? We did. And we did, okay. And have we recovered that fund since then?
Not 100%.
Majority of it.
A majority of it.
So if this referendum gets passed, what will happen to that money that you set aside? And will that continue to be set aside after each storm? Will it be built back up again?
Yeah, the idea is to build back those reserves to where they were. And, you know, can reserves be used for emergencies? Sure they can. But had a storm followed Ian, we would have been in a real pickle. So the idea most likely would be, and again, it would depend on the storm and the severity and the costs involved. But I would anticipate that when another storm hits and we have expense, part of it might come from reserves, part of it might come from borrowings, you know, short-term borrowings like I suggested, state and federal, and a combination, but leaving us with enough on the bone to protect us if we had back-to-back storms. So those reserves are there to, one, bolster our financial sustainability for all kinds of things. And we're mandated to maintain 20%, and then we try to maintain a little extra cushion.
All kinds of things, part of your answer is concerned.
Well, you know, when I say all kinds of things, I mean the general running of the city. I mean, we have a big city of 100,000 people, and we have a budget that approximates $300 million, and reserves are necessary for, who knows, any one of a number of reasons: major recessions, downturns in property values that affect city's ability to generate the revenues it needs to continue to provide the basic services and safety-related services to the city. So those reserves are mandated. I mean, we maintain 20% because we've got to. So when we start tapping those reserves for emergencies, we expose the city a little bit financially. That's why, to the best of our ability, we should not have to tap them if we don't have to. It's always better to use someone else's money, especially if it's forgivable in the sense of federal and state loans. They're out there. They're available.
Where does the federal and state get the money?
I'm sorry?
Where does the federal and state agencies get the money?
Citizens all over the nation.
So us.
It's
Okay.
always us. When you finish
Well, I
it,
know.
the government and at any level have money.
I know, but you see, I'm here asking these questions because
Absolutely.
I can't watch what you guys spend money on every day, even though I maybe have the time. I don't want to, right? So I'm asking these questions: what's going to happen to the money that's already set aside? Is
Right.
the habit, if you will, of putting money aside to meet that emergency, is that going to be continued?
So-
I just wanted to know.
And I heard your, may I interject, Mr. Mayor? Brian, good to see you again. And I heard your question, and my answer is, the fact that you have the ability to borrow now does not give us free will to go spend a pot of money that we had set aside for disaster on something else without proper due diligence. The money that you need when a disaster hits, there's a time factor in there, and having that money there is not going to change. We're not going to suddenly say, well, you know what, now that we can borrow money, let's start putting that money over to the side, and then a hurricane comes and let's get in line and ask the governor for money. That's not how it works. What we will do, which is make sure that we exceed the mandatory amounts of those fund balances, which we have. Our numbers are a little bit higher, which is why we were prepared for Ian. So if we use Ian as an example, that pot of money is there. We are still going to have that same pot of money there, regardless of how this vote goes. The concern is when that pot of money runs out. If that pot of money is gone and another storm comes in 3 or 4 weeks later, we would be in a position where we would not be able to react on our own. And that's what we're trying to do. This city has a great strength of credit, AA rated, low debt based on everything that we already know. Like he said, zero to no loan fees may come from the state. All we're saying is we need to be able to take care of ourselves and make sure that we can recover the city, not after one emergency, but multiple emergencies.
Thank you. Oh, one more. Please don't insult me by saying everybody else is doing it, so that's why we need to do it. I like the answers with the details, not everybody else is doing it. Just kind of gets under my skin. That's all I have to say.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Okay.
Anyone else on this first referendum item? Going once, going twice, going three times. Moving on to second item, 25-1929. This is discussion regarding referendum question related to the removal of residency requirements from the City of Northport's charter for the city attorney and the city clerk positions. City manager, you want to touch on this and introduce it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the current city charter requires that the city clerk and city attorney establish residency in the city of Northport within 1 year of being hired, and that each maintain that residency in the city while in the position. Should the charter be amended to remove that requirement for the city clerk and city attorney, what it means is that they are two of the three charter officers, along with myself, that are appointed by the commission, and the clerk's duties as well as the attorney's duties are acting as the custodial of records of all records of the city and recording official actions to the city commission, preparing minutes, and serving as the elections official. The attorney serves as the legal advisor and legal counselor for the commission and city staff and prepares ordinances, resolutions, and contracts to be considered by the commission. Having known what they do as their role, the point of this question is they are not a forward-facing official like your city manager is in your public. You do not gain anything or lose anything from them not being in your community. You're able to reach them during the office hours that they need to. The commission and myself and our teams are able to reach them in the off hours that we need them, but it's not something that says, hey, you need to be here, living here in order to do your job well. We have a lot of community interactions that I'm involved in, whether they're community engagement, public speaking, all kinds of things that we, myself, and the ones that you elect need to be here on a daily basis. It would be extremely difficult for me to perform my role and live outside the city. We definitely all understand that. So what we're saying is if and when this changes, it would allow us to not only tap into the people that we have who do live in Northport. Our city clerk currently lives in Northport right now. So it's not a matter of we're dealing with situations where they all don't want to be here. We're just trying to say that this would give us greater flexibility as we cast the widest net possible to make sure that we have the best talent here in the city of Northport. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Open to questions. Anybody on this item? Yes, ma'am. Atta girl. Come on up.
Julie, and I'm waking these people. police department. We need the police department. We've got to find the money for it. Thank you.
Who else?
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Scott Smith. I'm the Vice President of Southwest Florida PBA, the police union that represents the men and women of the Northport Police Department. And the reason I'm here tonight is, first off, obviously, I would like to thank you, the Commission, and our city manager for your support with this new building. 18 and a half years ago, when our police department opened up, nobody could have ever expected that we'd be in the position that men and women in this department face every day today. Our building's outdated. It's all antiquated. It's not close to being large enough. We have a digital forensic lab that is overflowing and bursting at the seams, a property and evidence room that's bursting at the seams. We don't have proper ventilation for our property and evidence technicians for the drugs, the biohazard, all of the things that nobody wants to smell or deal with. They have to on a daily basis. It cannot be fixed with the current situation in our department. Our administrative offices are too small. They're downsizing offices to accommodate more people. Working conditions are getting tighter and tighter. Interview rooms transferred into offices. We're at the point now, I think, where maybe some restrooms might have to be transferred into an office because we have just no space left. Closets turned into offices. The support of the community is going to be absolutely exceptional for this, hopefully. However, I can tell you that is a 100% need for this police department to continue growing in the future. Our agency is expanding just as fast as the city in order to provide the current service levels that the citizens are actually asking for and deserve. This is absolutely necessary. So again, we'd like to thank you for your support for our men and women.
Thank you, sir. Who's up next? Nobody else wants to weigh in on this? There we go.
I'm Julie. I'm nobody. I just love this town and I love to live here. My question is, so say this doesn't pass and people don't want to use, which makes sense, the bonds and stuff. And so say it gets voted down. How would we get the money then? I mean, I'm willing to stand out in the street like to fill the boots. People do. I mean, I'll get a bucket and ask for money if you need it. But how else could we do this if people say no, which I'm hoping they're not?
You want me to take that, Mr. Mayor, or you?
I'll be delighted to.
I'll go first.
Yes.
The question at hand is, by law, in order to use general obligation bonds, we have to go out for a vote. And I think everyone probably understands that in the state of Florida. The question is not, will we do it? We are going to do it. So if it fails, we will have to choose a higher cost method in order to get it done. There's no scenario where we say, you know what, the consultants were wrong, the subject matter experts were wrong, the police is wrong, we're just going to just make it work and keep making it work. Now, in all sincerity, we wish we could, because we know that there are factors outside of the city of Northport that's making things tough on everyone right now. I mean, forever how long? Pick your time frame. But what we have within our control is to take care of our police force in the most cost-effective way possible. And we're going to make sure that they get what they need. Now, the first option is general obligation bonds, but we're pretty sure that through a court-validated process, certificates of participation might work as well, which will have a higher interest rate, which will cost a few more $1 million over the life of the project. And again, in a city of ours where we're not terribly rich, we have a low taxable value compared to cities around us, we need everything that we can to stay within the city of Northport. If I'm a resident, as I am, I want to make sure that the people who are making these decisions are making them with me in mind, saying, are you trying to save every dollar that you can just based on everything else that you just said was out of your control that is harming me that you cannot fix? So our approach is to, one, go through the people, because that's the right of the people, and we would never take that away from the people. But once the people have made their choice, the same way we came back and broke the question up, because that's what we heard, we have to move forward to the next step.
Okay. All right. I just would like to know what we can do to make the non-believers or the people, I mean, again, I'll stand down the street and tell people that you need to do this.
Well, and Miss Julie, what I
Yes.
would say is, this is not a very popular time to be asking people to borrow money.
Right, right,
This is a even less time to say trust your government.
right.
So we understand what we're up against, and we know that some of that feeling that I just echoed was well deserved and earned by people who sit in my seat and other seats who have done things wrong. We get it. We understand it. I can even empathize with it, but I can't condone it. We have to understand that the people who are here now have hopefully earned the trust and the benefit of the doubt to say, look, we are doing this the right way. Some people, based on that same thinking, you could stand out there all day long. You're never going to change their minds.
Right.
We have to accept that. But we want you all to know that your government is doing the right thing by you as a whole.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. It was a beautiful thing, City Manager. Good.
Hello, my name's Dan Matthews. I have a question. The builders that are in this town building, what percentage are they going to participate, help pay for this project? Is there a particular percentage, or how are we? They're making billions of dollars building our town up, and I think it's time that maybe we get something back from them.
So as Kim Humphreys, she's part of our project management team for this particular project. I agree with you, sir. There is always and should always be an emphasis on the subcontractors working from the community that they're building in. There has to be some sort of return back to the local environment so that all of the money does not flow out of the city. Now, while I don't know the details of this particular project, and I'll let her speak, where I am used to doing business at, that is a common practice.
So Kim Humphrey, Project Manager for Public Works. We do have a goal in the bidding environment for a local participation of 50% or more. So, who knows when we put it out there on the street, but that is our goal.
Thank you.
Next up, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Robert Corcoran. I'm a resident along with my wife in Northport for 10 years. And initially, when I saw the $115 million price tag, I was against it. And that's why I want to speak just now, is having heard more people talk about it, having investigated it more. If you look at, a home from 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, and you do the figures as to what it actually will cost you, it's really a small amount for what you get, what we will get as far as a better facility, better opportunity to provide for our citizenry and to live the life that we want to live, because I think oftentimes nobody even realizes how much goes on behind the scene. So, I come from a background, I'm retired military. Our motto was do more with less. In the field, it was do everything with nothing. So the reality of it is I'm very attuned to doing things as creatively as you can. And I think what is being proposed, if it can be said to me, who initially was against the dollar figure, well, wait a minute, look at your tax as to what it's actually going to be on your priced home. And that information could be disseminated to the average person like me. Then you might get a convert who would say, well, that's really not a lot for what we're going to get, as was just mentioned by the rep here, that, you can't have an evidence room overflowing. You can't have people walking over each other and still have a functioning government. It's not possible. So thank you for your time. And I just wanted to mention that I was against it and swayed the more information I was able to obtain. And in a way that I could understand it as just a taxpayer from my house. So like a 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever $100,000 house you have, the dollar figure that will actually increase just for this item might be something that would make people think, well, that's not a lot of money for what we're going to get way into the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Duval?
Yes. In case anyone doesn't know this, tomorrow morning there's going to be a groundbreaking ceremony for the widening of Price Boulevard. I bought my house here in 2008, and they were talking about it then, and they were talking about $5 million. Well, we signed off on this just a couple of weeks ago. There was a figure somewhere around $93 million. That's the cost of waiting. They're telling me that construction costs in Southwest Florida are increasing at about 8% a year. If we don't do things now, we're going to pay more later. I have another point I'd like to make. If I asked you folks sitting here, how many of you respect our police department? I would say I'd get a lot of hands. But you know who else respects our police department? Criminals. If you look and see and compare the city of Northport to surrounding towns and cities around Florida, our crime rate is lower than just about every one of them. And that's because criminals respect our police department. We need to protect those that protect us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Steve. Just a quick follow-up question to the gentleman that was speaking before about if you minimize it to your residential taxes, right? You look at it that way. My question is with all the industry in Northport that keeps coming in, right? Are they taxed will they be participating in this? Like all the new industrial properties that are being built in the city, would they be also helping us out with this?
Yes.
Yes, sir. There are very few exemptions to the property tax value that we would assess that would allow someone not to participate. But when you see that, and to your point, that growth in what you see, they're bringing revenue into the city from a different angle. It should not all be on the backs of the taxpayers. So there is a benefit to that growth. I know the young man spoke earlier about the traffic and everything that goes with it, but there are pros and cons that come with that.
Right, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
What about renters? Do renters have to pay property tax? Forgive me, I don't know.
No, if you don't own property, then you don't pay property tax.
Because there's a lot of condos and apartments going up, and all these people are going to be protected by the same police department.
Well, I would just make the comment that I know a lot of landlords and landladies, and when taxes go up, rents go up. So the property tax is embedded in the leases, and then the property owner is paying the property tax. So you don't have to worry about that ratio. A more troubling ratio is the fact that commercial enterprises pay more in taxes than we do. And our city, unfortunately, is very imbalanced in terms of what percent of our land use is commercial. Up until last year, only 8% of our land use was zoned for commercial, and the experts advise that you want 20 to 30% of your land use commercial to really balance out your property taxes so that the homeowner isn't always taking it on the chin. Now, we went through an extremely painful rezoning of the city last year, and we've gotten up to about 16, 17% commercial. And the more we realize commercial development, the more imbalance our property taxes will be. It will start to shift a little pressure off the homeowner and have the commercial sector pull more of the weight. Is that helpful? Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. What's
Okay.
going to happen to the facility that is currently being used?
That's the comment I wanted to make a few minutes ago. The police department isn't the only department in the city that's been growing. And so there are a lot of departments in the city that would like to see the tail feathers of our police department into their new building, because we will fill up that vacated building very quickly. Estimates I heard were probably in 3 months that building would be full. And that's a huge benefit, because then we don't have to build something else to house our other groups that have been growing along with the police department.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, while he comes to the microphone, and to that point of City Hall being sort of filled and sort of spilling out into that other building, to put it in proper perspective, we would need a new City Hall building. There's no one in this room, including myself, who would vote yes for a new City Hall building right now. You would have to go figure it out. And that's what we would have to do with City Hall. And so figuring it out means taking advantage of that other building. So when we say these projects, and I know we mentioned the $115 million price tag with a big price tag, if you don't have an emotional reaction to $115 million, then that's something in itself. It is a large number. What we're asking is for people to sort of get past the number and focus on the purpose and understand that we are not frivolous in bringing that to your feet and asking you to borrow for it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is David Hart, citizen of Northport. Part of my question is, if it's going to cost us $115 million, but I also have read that there was another $7 million was going to put it up to $122 million. Now, I don't know how accurate that is or not. I'm not sure. So that means that's already going up. Now, as we do this, and we had, 200 some odd people that have to maintain this, and I'm not sure how many police officers we have, 125 or something maybe. That means we have to double those numbers. So as we do this and we build this, that means we have to all the other people. That means that's how many more pensions we're going to have. You have our houses at approximately $250,000 right now, which actually I think is more like three and a quarter. So that means there's more taxes there. So how is all this going to be paid, and how much are our taxes going to go up when we do all this? You know, and that's part of my question there. And I'm just curious on how we're going to work all this, because we have to have these people to do this. And we do want safety in our community and cities. I mean, nobody's arguing that point. But where's all this actually going to come from, besides these other bonds that you say you want to buy or get at a lower rate, and especially at a high interest rate at this point? You know, because I went through this one time in another city where I was, and they wanted to build everything when everything went to sky rates. And sometimes that's not always the best deal to do, even though I know you're wanting to get this going, and we need it going because of the influx that's coming. And we're looking for at almost 100,000 people now already. And we're planning to project more, because I don't know how many empty houses we have right now that are being ready to be sold. So how are we going to maintain all this, and how much are our taxes really going to go up? Oh, and then one other thing. It said here, too, that it should be paid for, and within 30 years, then that tax would be eliminated from it. Well, most of us here are not going to be around in 30 years to actually make sure that does happen. So where's the guarantee that that happens? Or is there another tax that has to come in to maintain that?
So from my end, I'm going to live forever just to spite people who want me to die. So you can come with me. We're going to be around forever. To answer some of your questions, sir, I think our staffing is more close to 200 officers right now. We're actually looking at and going to have some swing space of trailers out behind our police headquarters in the upcoming months, because they have to get out of that space, and that's the only way that we can get them out right now. So that will be one of the temporary solutions. The question about how we pay for it, if we have done a ULDC rewrite that was mentioned earlier, and that let me go back up. The Unified Land Development Code is what governs the rules of our land usage in the city. And we're like 68%. We need to be about 20%. That will take us to a higher level of commercial percentage. As that Unified Land Development Code gets into effect, it is going to bring millions of dollars into our city that's going to help us be able to handle more of these projects going forward. So it's not all about how much we can borrow and ask for you. The question that, I think that your city should be answering is, are you always going to keep asking me to borrow every time you need something? Right. And this city is 65 years old, and they have not asked you to borrow a lot. So what we did was we put the plan in place so that the revenue could come in so that we could still take care of ourselves. But there are going to be times that we have to come to you and ask. And then we want to make sure, like the questions that you're asking now, have you thought about how it's going to pay for in the future? How many more officers are you going to hire, and where they're going to go, and where the pension is going to come from? So the studies that we referenced earlier, one from 2018 and one from 2023, put us on a schedule of how we need to keep hiring officers in order to maintain the level of safety that we want. We slipped a little bit from that last year, but we're going to come back to that this year and sort of try to make it a little bit better. But our police chief, our police team has been very flexible and understanding that they are not the only department that we have to fund in this city. When we talk about doing more with less, we have multiple departments that leave multiple millions of dollars on the floor every single year, and we have still been able to provide a good quality of life, in my words, for the people who live here. Now, having said that, if we're providing a level of service here, and here's the floor where we don't want to go below, there's a gap to play within our budget and what we can afford. That's where we're trying to make sure that we stay, so that we have 7 pillars for the city of Northport of importance. I will challenge any of you that safety is the most important pillar. Mm-hmm. You can have great parks, which we do. Shout out Sandy Funheller. Economic development. You care about your environment. If you don't feel safe when you close your door or lay your head down, you're not going to want to be here. And the people who you think might value your home and your quality of life, guess what? They're not going to want to be here. So I know I'm long-winded when answering, I'm sorry, sir, but I hope that you understand that what we have put into the due diligence of making sure that as we do have on our website and more information, as the gentleman said earlier, that gets people to understand your home value. And we use $246,000 as the average home value, not the average sales value, because that's what we researched and determined for the city of Northport. And that was like $121 a year, which breaks down to like 33 cents a day. It's not that large when you look at it or at the overall scheme of things, but let's be clear. If there's one opportunity that we miss and we lose a life, a single life that we could have changed, then I think we've all dropped the ball. I don't want any of us to be in that position or situation. I'd rather say that we did, and we knew we did everything that we could in order to make sure that this city was protected, and we did it every single day.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Anybody else on this Oh, here we go.
I forgot to introduce myself last time. Brian Lincoln, 5-year citizen here. So 115 million is a pretty big number. And I wonder how you came up with that number. And obviously the building's going to cost a certain amount of money. And how is that derived? And how big of a building? To meet today's needs? Or, because I think one of you folks told me at one point, our maxed out population for Northport was like 250,000 people. So is this one building going to handle 250,000 people?
Let me take that, Mr. Mayor. So
Absolutely.
The reports that are online for you to view, this project, we need to start at the price tag, which you said 115, and the gentleman said 122. So the 122 includes land, design, and some things that we've already paid for that we've been able to take care of as we go. The 115 is truly now you're talking about construction and how to actually outfit the building itself. When you look at the 115, it was determined based on the needs of the structure on the footprint of the site that we have. There's renderings there, the drawings are there, there's a lot of detail online, but this version of this police headquarters takes us to a build out through year of 2065. So that was one of the main decisions that our commission had to make. Either you paid for a lesser building now that covered fewer years, or you took a long-term vision so that we're not talking to you again in 15 more years saying, hey, oh, by the way, we need a bigger facility. The opportunity cost of building a smaller facility is going to add about 8%, like every year that we wait or you have to build on top of what you build. So from our standpoint and their standpoint, we put a lot of information in front of them, and I encourage all of you, if you haven't seen it, to visit our website, because the questions that Brian, who was in our Northport leadership class, by the way, that's how I know him, and I know that he cares. The questions that he's asking, the answers are there on our website. So please go look at the studies and what was done. We've been talking about this for over 2 years. This did not just become a conversation last year. We've been talking about this for a very long time. And granted, some of you might have been saying, I've been living my life and I haven't been paying attention all that time. And we necessarily don't want you to, because we want you to feel like you're in good hands to get you to where you need to go. But now is the time that you're here and you're asking questions, and we're grateful that you are. But it is a very long process to get here.
I don't think I could vote against anything for a police or a fire rescue. I think those guys are awesome. And I want the best that we can get here. I want them to have the facilities that they need. My question was basically, how long is the $115 million going to last? And from what you just told me, it's going to be about 40 years, right? So it's got a 30-year payback,
Yes.
and it's going to last 40 years. That's 10 years free. Right?
That's a good way to look at it. Yes, I'll take that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on this referendum item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have one e-comment, and I do have another comment card filled out if they haven't spoken already. All right, e-comment, Art Bilski. The proposed main police department building is 108,900 square feet with 7,400 square feet of just parking. The cost estimate is $123 million. Fort Myers proposes 180,000 square feet for just $139 million. Northport's building is estimated to cost $1,072 per square foot, not including the design, $4 million, and land acquisition. Fort Myers building is estimated to cost $772 per square foot. Design cost unknown, land acquisition unknown. The building for Northport is 37% higher per square foot than the larger building for Fort Myers. Why are we so expensive? Okay, and then the public comment card I have.
Before you go to that, I think our Deputy Chief Morales would like to provide a response.
Because we always want to make sure the information is equal to what is being asked. So, yes, Deputy Chief Morales, Northport Police. Fort Myers Police Department is building they just got their cost estimate right now of $140 million with 180,000 square feet of total buildings that they have. Now, keep in mind, they don't have a construction manager at risk yet assigned to their building, which means it could go even more of what they're estimating. We have construction manager at risk for our building that's given us a total cost estimate where we're going to be at. Now, our building that we've been talking about, they're saying 180,000 square feet. That's all their additional buildings around their headquarters. Their compound yards, their canine buildings, their other training facility buildings around their total headquarters. 180,000. If you take ours, which our building is 108,000 square feet finished in our headquarters with 30,000 square feet of shell space. Outside of that, our buildings, we have a canine building. We have our SRT SWAT building for our vehicles, all of our equipment. We have our compound yard to store all of our evidence vehicles that we have to keep. Some evidence we have to keep for over 100 years, depending on the case. Yes. So if you add all those buildings up, okay, we're 183,000 square feet of all the buildings of finish, which puts us, compared to Fort Myers, $682 a square foot. So we're up $100 less than what theirs. But so comparing apples to apples, if they're using all their total buildings all in, us all in, that's where we compare. So hopefully, CM, that answers that question. We are less square footage than what theirs is right now currently. So,
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, sir.
All right, and the public comment card I received is from Dan Matthews, if you didn't speak already. Okay, all right, and that is all, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next referendum item, 25-19. Oh, whoop.
I was waiting.
He was waiting for the 3 count.
Well, no, actually, I wanted to respond to what he said first. He said 2 things. I don't know where he went to. You said 2 things. You said theirs is including all of this, and then at the end you said if theirs is including all of this. Do you know for a fact, or are you just saying if it is? Okay, so you know that it's not if it is, and you were just okay. Okay. I have some questions, but I have some real quick questions that maybe are just key. If this gets approved in May, when is the start date, and when is the completion date?
Hello, Kim Humphrey, Project Manager of Public Works again. So assuming that the referendum passes May 13th, we do have time that it takes to actually do the borrow and get those funds in, and in that time frame, I believe I've heard 4 to 6 months. But we are preparing the GMP to go to commission August, September, because you don't meet in August. And we'd be prepared to break ground within a month after that. Our total duration for construction is 26 months.
Okay, so 25, 26, sometime in 27?
That it should be completed.
Assuming this gets passed in.
Correct.
And if it doesn't, you may not be okay. So
That's not me.
If it doesn't get passed, what's the time frame we're talking about?
I think that depends on the alternative financing tool that we settle on, so it would just take longer, is what I will tell you.
Well, longer at 8% makes a big difference. You know what I'm saying? If it's going to be 5 years or 10 years, I mean, I don't think anybody with any that's paid any attention could look at our situation right now and say, yeah, this is great. 32,000 square feet is all we need. Nobody is saying we don't need a new station. I just want to know why it's being framed, or it was framed, and I know you've heard this because I watched the last town hall. It was framed for the November election as this police station was going to be part of that $15 million, the one that was voted down in November. It was framed that way in articles. I have an article from Tampa Bay, Tampa 10, I think it was. It was quoting the city manager, and it doesn't say it. It says, we need this for an infrastructure. I can give you the exact quote, actually. It said, we have been a pay-as-you-go community, and now we are at the point where we can no longer afford large-scale infrastructure projects. Therefore, borrowing authority is needed. Understood. That was a direct quote from the city manager. Then it said, Fletcher said the list of infrastructure includes new police department, which would cost the city $122 million. And this was an article before the November election. So to say that that wasn't framed that way, anybody who read that article sure thought we were voting on the police station. Can anybody disagree with that?
Yes. First of all, you should get your true information from your government, not from the media. That's the first.
This was an article quoting you, though.
Sorry, you're right. People are never misquoted in articles in the paper, so I don't know what I'm talking about. My point to you is the question that was on the ballot was, would you allow for borrowing emergencies, which has nothing to do with the police headquarters, and would you allow for us to borrow for failing infrastructure projects for public safety and health up to $15 million? How do you put a $120 million project in that sentence? It's not the same thing. We specifically, those people in the back specifically, made sure that they let people know we are not trying to sneak anything in anywhere. It's a large-scale project. It cannot fit into the November question. It was never meant to fit into the November question, sir.
Okay, and I understand that. The point is, you see that article, and if people were doing their due diligence and weren't listening to the city council and just read the articles, there's 4 articles that I found. Only one of them mentioned that the police department or the police station wasn't included. Okay? And they all mentioned not as blatantly as that, but they all mentioned the police department as being an infrastructure need, which would lead to the belief that that's the thing. Then we go to the new referendum. And there's an article that was written, and again, it was quoting the deputy chief, and it talked about, well, again, this one was called Northport residents decide on borrowing $115 million for new police station. This is Fox 4. And in it, they had a video interview with them, and what they talked about was the need. Again, nobody questions the need. But I want to read you the end of that article. As the May 13th vote approaches, the future of Northport police operations hangs in the balance. The decision will determine whether the department can move forward with its plans for a modern, efficient headquarters or continue to adapt within the current overcrowded facility. Is that true? That's true. If we vote no, there won't be a new police station?
If you vote no, you just asked me how long would it take for us to do the other plan. I don't know how long that's going to take. They're going to have to make do for a longer period of time. I can't say if that's going to be a year or whatever process we have to go through. Most likely will have to be a court-validated process. They don't move very fast. But we're going to keep moving the ball until we get to where we need to get them to be. If you're looking for the answer of what kind of time should we be worried about or controlled, the only time you need to worry about is May 13th. It's either yes or no. If it's yes, we move as fast as possible. If it's no, we take another route.
Well, I asked time because there are 4 other cities building police stations in different stages. And so I just wanted to know, compared to them, where we were, because there is a time difference. For example, Tallahassee is just about, I think this year, the end of this year is what I read is they're about to move it.
I saw that too.
So I understand that they're going to have a lower cost because they started earlier and there's a time that, they made it in before we did.
Right.
But their cost is literally $730 a square foot. Now, I don't know whether it's the same situation as what he's saying is for Fort Myers. But and again, I know nothing I say here, nothing we vote on is going to change. This is going to be built. This $122 million station is going to be built, whether we like it or not. And I understand that it's a need. I just have a problem with $122 million when Hollywood is building a station for $85 million, the same size as ours.
Okay, so I understand the concern about the cost because, again, it's not a small number. But you said your only concern is about the cost, and you understand the need, right?
I do.
So if you understand the cost is the only question, and I'm telling you right now it's going to cost you more if you vote no, why would you vote no?
Well, let me ask you a question.
If that's your only concern.
Well, my only concern is building a police station that makes fiscal responsibility. And if other people are doing it for 50% less per square foot, not 50%, if we're spending 50% more per square foot than other places, I just want to know why. And if there's a way, why don't we just go get their police station if it's same size as ours and say, here, contractor, there you go, build it for us. Even if it is 2-3 years, it's still going to save us $20 million.
A few weeks ago, we had another town hall,
Yeah, I watched it.
and the Sarasota County School Board came down and spoke to us. And they talked about the schools, with our population growing, the schools that are going to have to be built. And for each school that they were talking about building, they were talking about $100 million. And what they said, and this was amazing, was that Southwest Florida is one of the most expensive places in the country to build anything. They told us that a school that they could build in Jacksonville, Florida, not even another state, but in Jacksonville, Florida, could cost $50 million. To build the same school here would be $100 million. And that's just a fact of where we live.
Well,
it's not that
Fort Myers is the same.
we're not doing things.
Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, all these places don't have, I would believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I got to imagine that on the other side of the state, down in Miami area, Fort Lauderdale area, it probably costs more than here. That's just my guess, just cost of living.
So we are currently bidding several projects right now. You know, I can tell you from experience in working in several different projects. In this area, our cost for construction, and it's important to say construction because that's not a total project cost.
Right.
So
That's a $7 million
just to
one.
build, right, we average between 700 and 770 in this area. But the cost of construction varies a lot by what you're constructing. You know, if you have an unconditioned space, it's much cheaper than, let's say, a room like this with a lot of technology and AV. This is very expensive square footage. Storage is very cheap.
Right.
So it balances a little bit.
Right. Oh no, I understand.
Okay.
That's you know.
I'm not sure if that answered the question, but I wanted to try.
Well, again, I'm just trying to understand. I know we're at a point where, you know, here's the thing. Last meeting, one of the things that the mayor said was, you just have to, and we're just asking you to trust us. And I did. I've been trusting you. I've lived here since the old police station was opened. Trust and apathy are really close. You know, they're really kind of the same thing. So while I trusted you, meant I wasn't paying attention. And somehow or another, we ended up, I don't disagree with a police station. I disagree with our police station being so much out of the norm from every other one. Even the backup plan, you said, I think was 70,000 square feet, was still over $100 million. That's the backup plan for 70,000 square feet. My problem is, I'll just end with this. You guys said at this meeting, the last meeting, that you came back in November, you heard what we said. No one asked me. So I just want you to hear me. My no vote for the police station is not that I don't back the police. It's not that I don't appreciate that we live in a very safe community. It's the fact that somehow, some way, our number is 122 million, and the other numbers are far, far less per square foot. It just doesn't make sense to me. And my bad. I wasn't paying attention when you guys were going through this. And now we're stuck at a point where we're not being asked, we're being told the money's spent. You know, and the gentleman here at the back, the blue sign. The blue is backed. The building is being built. That's not even what this is about, but that's how it's being framed. And I have a real problem with it. It's being framed as back, you know, last time, you know, it was, I was saying, well, they're saying everything but think of the kid. And then you said, think of the kids. You know what I mean? The police station, the blue is being backed. All I'm asking is, why is it costing so much more than every other 4 other places, and we are literally 30 to 50%, 60%? And why that can't be revisited? Because if people won't know, you guys have put your finger on the scale here. You did a off-time election with, granted you're doing these meetings, because I think that was required by law, but there's a lot of people that aren't going to even know this is happening, and they're not going to vote. And the people who are the people who care. And I get that. But between everything that's said here is the police station, you know, all the reasons why we need a new police station. Very little tonight was said about the difference is $2 million and why, you know. More was said about the need than the finances. And I have a problem with that because it's being framed as if you don't back this, you don't back the blue, and that's just not true. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next agenda item. 25-1933, discussion regarding referendum question relating to borough authority for the solid waste transfer station project. City manager, would you kindly introduce us?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this actual question says to finance a new solid waste transfer station, shall the city of Northport be authorized to issue bonds in one or more series in a total aggregate principal amount not to exceed $14 million, maturing no later than 30 years from issuance, bearing interest at no more than the maximum lawful rate and payable from the revenues of the City Solid Waste District. So what this means is that we are planning to build a station in the eastern portion of the city on a site that will not impact our neighbors. The most efficient and fair method of financing cost of this project is through the issuance of bonds secured by payable from the revenues, charges, and fees and assessments derived from our solid waste revenues. It is not a new tax. It is based on those user fees. I'm going to stop right there, Mr. Mayor. I think this might be one of the more straightforward projects.
Thank you, sir. Who's got questions on this one? Anybody? Nobody? Nothing on this one. By all means, Mr. Devon, you look like you're taking a bit there to have a say.
Yeah, I have a comment on this. Again, when I bought my house here in When I bought my house here in 2008, every day, 5 days a week, school buses came from Sarasota to Northport. They brought our children to school. They picked them up at the end of the day. And then those school buses went back to Sarasota every night. Now, those school buses are parked every night just off Toledo Blade by Sarasota Memorial's emergency room. And why is that? It's because it saves money. Why would you want to have those school bus drivers get paid to drive back and forth to Sarasota every day? Well, why do you want to have our solid waste trucks? Our solid waste division does an excellent job. They come to my house every Friday. They pick up my solid waste. They pick up my recyclables, the plastic one week, the paper the next week. We also have a yard waste barrel. They come and pick that up. I get 2 bulk pickups a year. Usually my neighbors use them. And our solid waste drivers, when the truck is full, they have to go to the landfill in Sarasota. With a transfer station right here in Northport, the trucks can go to the transfer station empty. Solid waste gets compacted, and then it gets put into tractor trailers. Okay? We're saving on employees' time. We're saving on wear and tear on trucks. We're saving on fuel. And then there's an added bonus. Where it's located is going to be right over by the Charlotte County line, which isn't far from the DeSoto County line. Once we get this up and running, there's a possibility that maybe they might want to use our facility and we can get revenue from it besides. It's a no-brainer, folks. That's my thought.
The projected ROI, return on investment on this investment, will be less than 10 years. In the first 5 years, once this is up and running, the projected savings of citizen tax dollars exceeds $13 million. This one really is a no-brainer. It really is. And for those people who have raised the issue as to why we're asking for borrowing authority to issue bonds for this now when we haven't done design and we haven't gone to construction costs and we haven't really, what people say, dotted every I and crossed every T. There's a good reason. With an 8 to 10% increase a year in costs, if we wait till the next election, we're talking at least $3 million plus for this project to go up. The referendum language is very clear, an amount not to exceed $14 million. And the construction of this facility will be not to exceed $14 million. So it makes sense to do this one. I mean, to me, there's just no downside. There's no negative to this. And as Commissioner Duval said, once this is up and running and we're coping with our own Northport need here, the opportunity to make money. How often is there an opportunity for the city of Northwood to actually make money to help contribute to holding our taxes down? So this is a great project. Anybody else on this one? Any more questions on this one? Any public comments on this one? Nothing. All right. Let's move on to the final one. 25-1933, discussion regarding referendum question relating to borrowing authority for, 25-1935, excuse me, discussion regarding referendum question relating to borrowing authority for capital improvements to the Pan American Wastewater Treatment Facility. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question reads to finance capital improvements to the city's wastewater treatment facility located on Pan American Boulevard. Shall the city of Northport be authorized to issue bonds in one or more series in a total aggregate principal amount not to exceed $17 million, maturing no later than 30 years from issuance, bearing interest at no more than the maximum lawful rate and payable from the revenues of the city's water and sewer utility system. The city's utility department needs to make improvements to the effluent pumping station, a system that transports treated reclaimed water. A new 30-inch pipeline needs to be built between the Pan American Boulevard facility and a deep injection well where the treated water is discharged to. A vote yes would allow the city to finance this project through the issuance of bonds that will be paid back from the water and sewer utility revenues. It is not a new tax. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And just to add, before we open this up for questions, this particular wastewater facility is old. It has a couple of spills that we contained on the property. It does not have the capacity to handle the wastewater that's being pushed through it based on the growth, based on the needs here. Department of Environmental Protection has given us an order. Fix it. Fines can exceed or can run to $1,000 a day. They understand it takes some time to put things in place to be able to facilitate this upgrade. But this is not, this is not a want. This is a necessity. This is something we got to get done. And again, this particular borrowing referendum question is to issue bonds in an amount not to exceed $17 million. So there is a cap on the ability to borrow for this project, which will help contain it and keep it within budget. Anybody who has questions on this one? Come on, somebody's got to have some questions. No? Yes, no? Any other commissioners want to weigh in on this one? There you go. I don't know, city manager stole my thunder. Boy, I got plenty left. You want me to continue?
Well, I'll help us wrap up. May I say something, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
There was a comment earlier that said we were doing these town halls this way because it was legal or we had to do it by law. This is the first time we've done these town halls in this manner where since I've been here for 3.5 years, where the community can interact with them and engage and ask questions as opposed to a regular public comment ceremony in City Hall. I want to thank you all on behalf of myself and our team for doing that. It was very helpful. Glad we did it. I think we got a lot of good information out, and I think that the voters will be able to for it.
Thank you, City Manager. Do we have any other general comments? No? Well, with that, I'll just echo City Manager. Thank you all for coming out here. I mean, we appreciate it. And spread the word. And between now and Election Day, if people got questions, tell them to reach out. With that, it is 7:31. I adjourn this meeting.